Ethan had never expected his life to change the day a tiny spaceship landed on his balcony. He was a simple man living in a modest apartment on the outskirts of the city, enjoying quiet evenings with books, old movies, and the occasional cup of coffee. He was used to the ordinary, the predictable, and the calm. But that calm ended the moment the small silver craft shimmered into existence outside his living room window. It was no bigger than a teacup, spinning softly in the air before landing with a quiet thump. Ethan rubbed his eyes, thinking it was some kind of hallucination. He had read stories about aliens, of course, but he had never truly believed any of it. Now, standing on his balcony, he realized that fiction and reality were about to collide. The tiny door of the spaceship opened, and out stepped the most astonishing creature Ethan had ever seen. She was no taller than his coffee mug, with iridescent skin that shimmered like liquid metal. Her eyes were enormous for her small face, shining with curiosity and intelligence. Tiny antennae waved gently from her head, sensing the world around her. She looked around, then at Ethan, and waved a hand in greeting. "Hello," she said in a high-pitched, melodic voice. "I am Lyra." Ethan blinked. Hi, I'm Ethan. Are you an alien?" Lyra giggled, a sound like tiny wind chimes. "Yes, from the planet Viridian. I am your new roommate. You agreed to take me in?" Ethan froze. He had indeed signed some forms, part of an experimental interspecies housing program he had found online months ago. He thought it was a joke. Apparently it was not, right? "Roommate," he said slowly. "Okay, I guess. Welcome, you can come in." Lyra floated gracefully into the apartment, her small feet barely making a sound on the floor. Ethan watched, a mix of awe and anxiety in his chest. She immediately began examining everything: books, furniture, kitchen utensils, and even his shoes. She poked at his coffee mug, sniffed the air, and jotted notes on a tiny holographic pad she carried. "This place is fascinating," Lyra said, bouncing slightly with excitement. "Your gravity is moderate, temperature tolerable, and air digestible. Excellent, I like it." Ethan laughed nervously. "Well, I'm glad you like it. So you're going to live here? Permanently?" "Yes." Lyra's voice had a tone of certainty that made Ethan uneasy. She zipped around the apartment like a tiny whirlwind, touching, examining, and sometimes leaping onto surfaces Ethan didn't think she could reach. Over the next few hours, Ethan tried to explain basic human rules. Lyra listened intently, though her concept of personal space was clearly different from his. She perched on the edge of his table, examining a stack of papers, then zipped over to the lamp, climbing up its pole like a tiny acrobat. Ethan sighed, rubbing his temples. "Okay, I guess I'll need to adjust. And you need to adjust too. You can't just touch everything." Lyra tilted her head. "Touch? Why not?" "Understanding requires contact," Ethan groaned. "Humans sometimes need privacy. Also, some things are fragile." "Fragile?" Lyra repeated. She poked the lamp again. "I see. Fragile. I will be careful." Despite the chaos, Ethan couldn't help but smile. There was something endearing about Lyra's enthusiasm. She reminded him of a child exploring a new world, though she clearly had intelligence far beyond a human child. After a while, Lyra grew quiet and floated to the sofa. "Ethan, I have a question." "Yes?" he replied cautiously. "I want to understand humans deeply. I want to learn about your biology, your habits, your reproduction." Ethan nearly choked on his coffee. Your what?" "Reproduction," Lyra repeated. "The process by which humans create offspring. I wish to study it scientifically." Ethan froze. He didn't want to offend her, but he also didn't want to give an alien a crash course in human intimacy. That's complicated," he said, carefully choosing words. "And private, not something I can show you directly." Lyra's antennae drooped slightly, a sign of disappointment Ethan had learned to recognize. "Oh, I see. So it is private, fascinating. Then I must observe. Indirectly." "Indirectly?" "Yes," Ethan said, relieved. "You can read books or watch documentaries." "That's safe." Lyra's face lit up. "Books, I love books." "Very well. I shall begin immediately." For the next hour, she floated through the apartment, poring over Ethan's collection of biology textbooks. Ethan watched from a distance, secretly amused. Lyra was surprisingly adept at reading human text, her alien eyes flicking across the pages faster than he could comprehend. She even started taking notes, scribbling in her tiny holographic pad with lightning speed. Just as Ethan began to relax, Lyra jumped onto his desk, knocking over a cup of pens. "Ethan, emergency!" "My test failed," she shrieked in her tiny, high-pitched voice. Ethan ran over, prepared for a disaster. "What happened?" Lyra waved a small device frantically. "I tried to simulate a human reproduction scenario, using my holographic model, but it exploded." Ethan blinked. "Exploded? Really?" "Yes," Lyra screeched. A small puff of harmless, glittering vapor filled the air, coating the desk in sparkling dust. "This is dangerous. Humans are more complex than I anticipated." Ethan tried not to laugh. "It's fine. It's just glitter. Not dangerous." Lyra looked horrified. "Not dangerous?" she squeaked. "I thought it would destroy everything." "My calculations were perfect." Ethan put a reassuring hand over her tiny shoulder. "Hey, accidents happen. You're learning. That's what matters." Lyra's antennae drooped, but she nodded. "Yes, learning. I understand, but humans are complicated. Very complicated. I must continue my study." Ethan groaned inwardly. "Oh boy, I'm in for a long ride." The rest of the evening passed with a mix of chaos and curiosity. Lyra tried different experiments, none involving Ethan directly, thankfully, such as growing tiny holographic plants to simulate human embryos or testing gravity's effect on her models of human cells. Each experiment ended in some harmless mishap: holographic liquid spilling, tiny sparks flying, and colorful lights filling the room. Ethan moved carefully around her, constantly worried something might break, but secretly fascinated by her dedication and intelligence. Finally, exhausted, Lyra floated onto the sofa. "Ethan, thank you. I have learned much today. But humans still perplex me." Ethan sat beside her, smiling. "You're learning, Lyra. That's what counts. You'll get it eventually." "I hope so," Lyra whispered, yawning in her tiny, melodic voice. "Tomorrow. I will try again, gently, very carefully." Ethan laughed softly. "I'll hold you to that, tiny roommate." As the lights dimmed and the city outside settled into night, Ethan realized something. Life with a tiny alien roommate might be chaotic, messy, and completely unpredictable. But it was also exciting. Lyra's curiosity, intelligence, and sheer determination promised adventures he had never imagined. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but he knew one thing for sure. His life would never be ordinary again. And somewhere in her tiny spaceship-like mind, Lyra was already planning her next experiment, determined to understand humans, no matter how many glitter explosions it took. The morning sunlight spilled into Ethan's apartment, highlighting the glittery remains of Lyra's previous experiments. Tiny, sparkling dust settled on the bookshelves, the desk, and even on Ethan's favorite chair. He rubbed his eyes and muttered, "I'm going to need a bigger vacuum." But Lyra was already awake. She hovered above the floor, small wings flickering in the light, eyes glowing with excitement. "Ethan, today is important," she chirped, buzzing like a miniature hummingbird. Ethan groaned, holding his mug tightly. "Important or dangerous?" "Both," Lyra said, her tiny arms flailing. "I have decided that today I will conduct my first human reproduction experiment. Safely. Very scientifically. I have prepared everything, see?" She zipped around, pointing at a cluster of holographic machines she had set up on the coffee table. Tiny lights blinked and soft whirring sounds filled the air. Ethan stared, unsure whether to admire her ingenuity or panic at the complexity of the contraptions. "You're going to do that here?" Ethan asked cautiously. "Of course," Lyra said. "Where else would I learn? I need accurate data. Humans are unpredictable. I must observe directly." Ethan rubbed his temples. "Directly? Does that mean me?" Lyra tilted her head, thinking. "Perhaps. But do not worry. I am careful. Extremely careful. This is scientific, not dangerous." Ethan wasn't reassured. I'll try to help, but maybe we can do it with models first." "Models?" Lyra's eyes sparkled. "Excellent idea. I shall begin immediately." Over the next few hours, Ethan watched in awe as Lyra set up her tiny laboratory. She used miniature holographic humans, colorful lights, and small mechanical devices to simulate human reproductive processes. Her understanding of human anatomy was based entirely on the books she had studied, which meant some things were slightly exaggerated or completely wrong. Ethan tried to correct her gently. "No, Lyra. Humans don't explode when you combine the gametes, he said, pointing to a holographic projection that showed tiny sparks flying between two model figures. Lyra frowned. Are you certain? Your books are inconsistent. One diagram suggested high energy during reproduction. I assumed sparks indicated energy. Are you hiding the truth? Ethan shook his head, laughing nervously. Not exactly. Sparks are just your simulation. Humans, it's more natural. Less dramatic. Less dramatic? Lyra repeated, her voice rising in pitch. Fascinating. You mean humans are simpler than I thought? Yes, Ethan said, relieved. Much simpler. And safer. Despite her misunderstanding, Lyra's excitement was infectious. Ethan found himself explaining human reproduction in simple, safe terms, using plants and tiny toys as analogies. She listened carefully, occasionally scribbling notes on her holographic pad. You see, Lyra, Ethan said, pointing at a small plant on the windowsill. Humans are like these plants. They grow, they combine elements naturally, and new life appears. No explosions, no sparks, just growth, natural and beautiful. Lyra's antennae twitched thoughtfully. Growth, natural, beautiful, I see. Yes, humans are efficient, but perhaps less exciting than my simulations suggested. I'll take that as a compliment, Ethan said, smiling. Just as he started to relax, Lyra squealed. Emergency. Simulation failed. Ethan spun around. Failed? How? A holographic model had begun spinning uncontrollably, projecting tiny lights in all directions. Lyra darted forward, waving her tiny arms. It is unstable. I cannot control it. The data is corrupted. Ethan rushed to help. He gently tapped the control panel and the lights fizzled out. It's fine, Lyra, you just miscalculated a setting. Nothing's broken, but I must understand humans fully, Lyra protested. I cannot fail. Failure is unacceptable. You're learning, Ethan said firmly. Mistakes are part of learning. That's how humans improve. You'll get it next time. Lyra paused, her tiny hands gripping the edge of the table. Learning, mistakes, improvement. Yes, I understand, but perhaps humans are not as fragile as I feared. They are resilient, Ethan nodded. Exactly. Humans are resilient. We adapt, we survive. And sometimes we laugh at our own mistakes. Lyra tilted her head. Laugh, you mean humans find joy in errors? Yes, Ethan said, chuckling. Sometimes mistakes are funny. That's how we cope. Lyra considered this. Interesting. Resilience. Humor. Adaptive. Humans are more complex than I anticipated. I must record this. She scribbled furiously on her pad, her tiny antennae twitching with concentration. Ethan watched, amazed at how much she wanted to learn. After a short break, Lyra returned to her experiment, this time focusing on a simulation using small plants and water. She wanted to test how human-like reproductive processes could be replicated with simpler models. Ethan guided her, showing her how seeds combine with soil and water to create new growth. Observe carefully, Ethan said. Growth takes time. Patience is key. Lyra floated above the experiment, her eyes wide with fascination. Patience, key. I understand. Humans wait, and life appears. Amazing. Hours passed, and the apartment became a mixture of tiny gadgets, holographic lights, and colorful plants. Ethan and Lyra worked side by side, occasionally laughing at small mistakes or accidental spills. Lyra's previous panic was replaced with careful observation and thoughtful analysis. At one point, Lyra created a tiny holographic scene showing two miniature humans holding hands under a glowing tree. Ethan, is this reproduction? She asked softly. Ethan nodded. Part of it. Humans connect with others, emotionally before anything else. Relationships, feelings. That's very important. Lyra's eyes softened. Connection, feelings. I see, it is different from my world. We focus only on science, efficiency, precision, humans. Add emotion to the process. Fascinating. Ethan smiled. Exactly. Humans are not perfect machines. We care, we feel, we make mistakes. And sometimes that's what makes life beautiful. Lyra's tiny hands hovered over her pad. Beautiful. Yes. I must record this. Humans, emotional, resilient, adaptive, curiosity, endless. Fascinating species. Ethan leaned back, sipping his coffee. You're learning fast, Lyra, faster than I expected. The day wore on, and Lyra's experiments became less chaotic. She learned to adjust her machines carefully, Avoiding the glitter explosions of yesterday, she even started labeling parts of her holographic models correctly, showing a remarkable understanding of human biology. By evening, Ethan and Lyra sat side by side on the sofa, exhausted but satisfied. "You did well today," Ethan said, patting her tiny head. "You learned a lot and nothing exploded this time." Lyra tilted her head, blinking up at him. "Yes, nothing exploded. I am proud. Humans are more interesting than I imagined. I wish to study more tomorrow," Ethan chuckled. "I'll be here to help. But let's maybe take a short break first," Lyra nodded, floating gently in the air. "Break, yes. Observation continues in dreams. I will analyze today's data while sleeping. Humans have remarkable patience and resilience. I admire this." Ethan shook his head, smiling. "You're going to be the smartest alien on Earth, Lyra." As night fell, the apartment was quiet except for the soft hum of Lyra's sleeping body, her tiny lights blinking gently like a miniature star. Ethan watched her, realizing how extraordinary his life had become. He had gone from a quiet, ordinary human to sharing his home with an alien researcher who was determined to understand him, his species, and the chaotic beauty of humanity. And somewhere in her tiny mind, Lyra was dreaming of experiments, simulations, and discoveries, eager to learn everything about humans, even if it meant a few harmless explosions along the way. For Ethan, this was only the beginning. His tiny roommate had already turned his ordinary world upside down, and he couldn't wait to see what adventures tomorrow would bring. The sun had risen fully over the alien horizon, casting warm golden light across the jagged landscape. Ryan and Lyra stood outside their small tent, surveying the valley before them. The air was cool but fresh, filled with scents of unknown plants that released subtle, sweet fragrances. For the first time since arriving on this planet, Ryan felt a sense of calm, though he knew this peace would not last forever. Lyra had been silent for most of the morning, her large, expressive eyes observing everything Ryan did. She watched him pack the remaining supplies, noting how he carefully folded each item, how he checked his tools, and how he organized his rations. Ryan glanced at her and smiled. "Are you ready to move?" he asked gently. She nodded, her shimmering skin catching the sunlight as she moved gracefully beside him. They began walking toward a nearby ridge that Ryan had spotted the previous day. From there, he hoped to get a better view of the surrounding terrain and perhaps locate water or signs of life. Lyra followed quietly, occasionally pointing at plants, rocks, or insects as if asking questions in her own way. Ryan smiled, realizing that communication with her would take patience, observation, and creativity. As they walked, Ryan tried to teach her human gestures and words. He pointed to himself and said, "Ryan," then to her, asking, "Name?" She hesitated at first, then said her name slowly. "Lyra," he nodded. "Good. Lyra," he repeated, emphasizing the sound. Every time she said it correctly, he smiled and gave a thumbs up. Small achievements like these filled Ryan with a quiet joy. Lyra, in turn, taught Ryan gestures from her own culture. She would touch her chest, then extend a hand forward or tilt her head while making soft musical sounds. Ryan quickly learned that these gestures were more than mere signals. They carried emotion, meaning, and subtle cues about her thoughts and feelings. He realized that understanding Lyra required more than words. It required empathy and attention to every small movement she made. As the day progressed, they reached the ridge. From this vantage point, the planet revealed more of its secrets. Strange plants swayed in the wind, their colors shifting as the sunlight hit them. Small creatures darted between rocks, quick and agile, their scales glittering faintly. In the distance, Ryan noticed a stream winding through a grove of tall, thin trees with translucent leaves. It would be a perfect source of water for the day and a good place to rest. "Water," Ryan said, pointing to the stream. He demonstrated drinking from his canteen and then handed it to Lyra. She mimicked him perfectly, taking small sips and then smiling. Ryan chuckled. "Good, you're learning fast." She made a soft musical sound that Ryan assumed was her way of acknowledging the compliment. They set off toward the stream, moving cautiously. The ground was uneven, and strange roots and vines twisted across the path. Ryan helped Lyra step over obstacles, guiding her hand when needed. She began to trust him more, occasionally holding his hand without hesitation. It was a small gesture, but it spoke volumes about the bond that was growing between them. When they reached the stream, Ryan showed her how to check the water before drinking, looking for any signs of harmful organisms. Lyra observed carefully, then nodded and took a small sip. Ryan smiled, proud of her attention to detail. They sat together on smooth stones by the water, eating a simple meal from their rations. Ryan offered her a piece of dried fruit, and she accepted it with a shy smile. After eating, Ryan decided to teach Lyra some basic survival skills. He showed her how to identify edible plants and how to use simple tools for cutting and digging. Lyra was a quick learner, her sharp mind absorbing every detail. She asked questions in gestures and sounds, and Ryan did his best to answer, often drawing diagrams in the sand or demonstrating with objects. "You learn fast," he said, smiling. She tilted her head, making a soft musical note. It wasn't a word, but Ryan understood it as a compliment. He realized that despite the differences between their species, learning and curiosity were universal. As the sun climbed higher, they explored the grove near the stream. Strange flowers with translucent petals swayed gently, releasing soft, glowing spores into the air. Small animals peeked from the trees, curious but cautious. Lyra pointed excitedly at a creature with 6 legs and iridescent wings. Ryan nodded. "Yes, that's harmless. Watch, but don't touch." She observed closely, her eyes wide with fascination. While exploring, Ryan noticed subtle signs that Lyra's pursuers might be near. Broken branches, disturbed sand, and faint footprints suggested others had passed through recently. He motioned for her to stay close. Lyra understood immediately, moving silently beside him. Though she was small, her agility and speed were remarkable. Together, they navigated the grove carefully, avoiding any signs of danger. By late afternoon, they found a sheltered area near the stream where they could rest. Ryan set up a small camp, building a fire and creating a comfortable place for Lyra to sit. She watched him work, then helped in her own way, arranging stones, gathering small branches, and mimicking his movements. Ryan smiled at her enthusiasm. "Teamwork," he said. She repeated the gesture, touching her chest and extending her hand toward him. Ryan understood it as an acknowledgement of partnership. As night approached, Ryan shared more of his world with Lyra. He showed her how to read a simple map, how to use a compass, and how to track the movement of the suns. Lyra listened intently, her eyes reflecting curiosity and intelligence. When she tried to mimic his actions, she sometimes made mistakes, but she never gave up. Ryan admired her persistence and dedication. Later, as they sat by the fire, Ryan noticed Lyra staring at the stars. The twin suns had set and the sky was filled with unfamiliar constellations. He pointed upward. "Humans. Look at stars like this. We wonder, we dream." She tilted her head, making soft melodic sounds. Ryan smiled. "Yes. You dream too, I think." She nodded, her eyes reflecting the light of the stars. The conversation took an unexpected turn when Lyra spoke again, in broken English. "Mate. Ryan, you protect me?" Ryan was silent for a moment, thinking. She wasn't asking romantically. She was confirming the bond they had begun. He nodded slowly. "Yes, Lyra, I will protect you. I promise." Her eyes shone with trust, and she made a sound that Ryan interpreted as joy. They spent the rest of the night sharing stories in their own way. Ryan told her about Earth, about human colonies on distant planets, and about the importance of trust, courage, and friendship. Lyra shared stories through gestures, drawings in the sand, and musical notes, telling of her tribe, their customs, and the dangers they faced from rival alien species. Though the languages were different, the meaning was clear. They were learning from each other, building a partnership based on respect and trust. As the night deepened, Ryan realized that being Lyra's mate was more than protection. It was a commitment to understanding, to teaching and learning, and to sharing experiences across the gap of species. He felt a deep sense of responsibility, but also a sense of pride. This small, fragile being had chosen him as a partner, and he would not betray that choice. By dawn, they were both exhausted but content. Ryan packed their gear while Lyra helped, moving with the ease of someone who trusted completely. They prepared to continue their journey, knowing that challenges lay ahead. Yet for the first time, Ryan felt that he was not alone. With Lyra by his side, he had a companion who was curious, intelligent, and capable, a partner in every sense of the word. As they set off toward the unknown terrain, Ryan glanced at Lyra. She walked confidently, sometimes pointing at strange plants or creatures, sometimes mimicking his actions. He realized that their partnership was growing stronger with every step. The bond of trust, respect, and shared curiosity was forming a foundation that would guide them through the perils and wonders of this alien world. The twin suns rose higher, bathing the landscape in warm light. Ryan and Lyra moved together, a human and an alien, learning from each other, protecting each other, and forming a partnership that would shape both of their futures. Whatever challenges awaited them, unknown creatures, harsh weather, or encounters with other alien species, they would face them together. That day, as they crossed a ridge and looked down at a valley filled with strange, colorful vegetation, Ryan felt hope. The bond he had with Lyra was more than survival. It was a connection that transcended language, culture, and even species. It was a partnership built on trust, respect, and mutual learning, and so their journey continued. Two beings from different worlds, united not by obligation or fear, but by choice. Ryan and Lyra were mates in the truest sense, partners in survival and learning and in the adventure of exploring the unknown. The alien world stretched out before them, vast and mysterious, but together, they were ready for whatever came next. The days on Orion Research Station had begun to blend together for Ethan. He woke each morning to the soft hum of Lyri's devices, floated in her glowing room, and watched her perform tasks that seemed impossible to any human mind. He had grown accustomed to the routine, the floating orbs, the panels of glowing symbols, and Lyri's constant vigilance. Yet something felt different this morning. Lyri's violet eyes were not filled with panic, nor were they fully relaxed. Instead, they seemed curious. She floated closer to Ethan, her tiny hands hovering over a series of panels that shimmered in blue and green light. "Ethan," she said, her voice quieter than usual. "There is something I must tell you, something important about my species, and why your presence affected me so strongly." Ethan sat up on the small mat she had prepared for him, giving her his full attention. "Go ahead. I'm listening." Lyri paused, considering her words. "On Zephora, my species biology is highly sensitive. We communicate with our environment not only through touch or speech, but through subtle energy signals. These signals influence our growth, health, and emotional state. A foreign presence, especially a species with a different energy pattern like humans, can trigger unexpected reactions." Ethan nodded slowly. "So it wasn't really dangerous? The reaction I caused?" "Not in the way I feared," Lyri admitted. "You did not knock me up as I panicked, but the reaction you triggered was strong enough to alarm me. It was unprecedented. Your human energy patterns are unusual. I have never encountered them in my work before." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Unusual how?" Lyri's eyes flickered as she manipulated a floating device, adjusting its energy flow. "Your species adapts quickly. Your mental patterns stabilize energy differently than expected. Most species would have caused a long-term instability. You neutralized it without even realizing it. That is remarkable," Ethan blinked. "So I helped even by accident?" Lyri nodded slowly. "Yes, but it is more than that. Humans have a quality we admire. You face uncertainty without freezing. You act even when the path is unclear. That is extraordinary." Ethan smiled. "I guess humans aren't always predictable." Lyri floated closer. "Indeed, unpredictability, combined with calm reasoning, is rare. That is why I allowed you to remain here despite the initial panic. You earned my trust in ways I did not anticipate." The revelation left Ethan thoughtful. All this time, he had felt frustrated by the confinement, anxious over being trapped in Lyri's room. Yet the situation had proven something bigger. Humans could adapt in ways even advanced alien species might not understand. That afternoon, Lyri decided to show him more of her work. She gestured to a large, transparent orb that hung in the center of the room. Inside, a swirling energy pattern glowed and shifted. "This is a simulation of Zephora's energy network," Lyri explained. "It connects our cities, our forests, even our biological systems. It is delicate. A small disruption can spread widely if not managed properly." Ethan leaned closer, fascinated. "It's beautiful. And complex." "Yes," Lyri agreed. "And dangerous if handled incorrectly. That is why your presence required careful observation. I needed to understand if your human energy would destabilize this network." Ethan nodded. "I think I understand now. Humans adapt. We find solutions. Maybe that's why you respected me after the incidents." Leary's eyes glimmered softly. Yes, your species has courage and adaptability. That is why you are remarkable. Days passed and the room became a place of learning rather than panic. Ethan assisted Leary with her experiments, adjusting panels, aligning floating orbs, and even calibrating small energy flows. Together they managed minor instabilities, testing the limits of her devices and his human adaptability. One evening, as the station's artificial night fell, a more serious challenge arose. One of Leary's larger devices, a complex orb with multiple layers of glowing energy, suddenly emitted a deep hum. The lights dimmed and the air shimmered with tension. "What now?" Ethan asked, trying to keep his voice calm. Leary's eyes widened. "An anomaly in the energy network. It is spreading beyond my room. If not stabilized quickly, it could disrupt the station systems." Ethan's heart raced, but he steadied himself. "What do I do?" "You must assist," Leary instructed. "Follow precisely. Any mistake could worsen the situation." Together they worked. Ethan pressed panels as Leary manipulated the orbs, her tiny hands moving with perfect precision. The hum of the device grew louder, vibrating the air, but Ethan focused, following her instructions exactly. Minutes passed, each second stretching endlessly. The energy in the room pulsed unpredictably, but Leary's calm voice guided him. "Now, press the final panel. Hold steady." Ethan obeyed. A surge of energy filled the room. Then suddenly the device stabilized. The hum faded. The lights returned to their normal glow and the floating orbs resumed their patterns. Ethan exhaled deeply, wiping sweat from his brow. "You did well," Leary said softly. "Most humans would have failed. But you adapted. Your presence. It is not a threat, it is beneficial." Ethan smiled. "I guess humans are good at handling the unexpected." Leary's eyes reflected a rare warmth. "Yes. And you have shown me that even a species as small and seemingly fragile as yours can have great strength. Not strength of body, but strength of mind and courage." For the first time, Ethan felt fully accepted in Leary's room. He was no longer just a human intruder. He was a partner, someone who had earned her trust through calm reasoning, observation, and adaptability. The following days were filled with continued collaboration. Leary shared more secrets of Xiphorian technology, how energy flows could be guided through thought patterns, how floating plants responded to subtle changes in emotional energy, and how the smallest mistakes could ripple into large consequences. Ethan listened, observed, and experimented carefully. He made mistakes, of course, but Leary's guidance allowed him to correct them quickly. Each success strengthened the bond between them, forming a partnership built on mutual respect and understanding. One evening, after another successful stabilization, Leary floated closer to Ethan. "You have changed my perspective," she admitted. "I once feared humans would destabilize everything. Now I see that your species can adapt, survive, and even improve systems beyond expectation." Ethan nodded thoughtfully. "That's what humans do. We learn, adapt, and find solutions. It seems that sometimes the unexpected is where we shine the most." Leary tilted her head, her violet eyes softening. "Indeed, I underestimated humans, but you are not like the others. You inspire trust." Ethan felt a sense of pride and satisfaction. Despite being trapped in a tiny alien's room, he had proven something important. Humanity's resilience, intelligence, and calm reasoning were qualities even highly advanced alien species admired. That night, as Ethan lay on his mat, he realized how much he had learned. Not only about Xiphorian technology and biology, but about the strength of humans. They could face the unknown, adapt to alien systems, and build trust across species boundaries. Leary watched him from her floating perch, a soft glow reflecting in her eyes. For the first time, Ethan noticed a faint smile on her tiny face, a gesture that spoke of trust, respect, and a recognition of human capability. And in that moment, Ethan understood that their confinement had not been a punishment, but an opportunity. An opportunity for two very different species to learn from each other, to face challenges together, and to recognize that courage, intelligence, and adaptability were qualities that transcended physical size, species, and culture. For Ethan, the experience was transformative. Humans had entered Leary's world unexpectedly, but their presence, their actions, and their ability to adapt had left an indelible impression. Leary finally spoke, her voice soft but certain. "Ethan, your species is remarkable. Perhaps one day you will teach others what it means to face the unknown with courage and clarity. Ethan smiled, lying back on his mat. I hope so, Leary. I really do. And as the soft glow of the room bathed them both in light, a new understanding settled between human and alien. Trust had been earned. Fear had been replaced with respect. And in the tiny room, high above a distant gas giant, two species had begun to learn from each other in ways neither would ever forget. The alien sky glowed with the twin suns casting long shadows across the valley. Ryan and Lyra had traveled for days, navigating rugged terrain, dense forests, and shimmering rivers. Every step had strengthened their bond, building trust, understanding, and a partnership neither could have imagined at the start. Now, as they approached the edge of a wide canyon, Ryan felt a mixture of anticipation and caution. This canyon, he said, pointing ahead, leads to the plateau. If we can reach it safely, we'll have a vantage point over the surrounding lands. We can plan our next steps and finally find safety. Lyra nodded, her small hand brushing against his for reassurance. Ryan smiled. She had grown so confident, yet she still relied on his guidance in critical moments. Their partnership had become a delicate balance of trust and teamwork. The canyon was treacherous. Loose rocks littered the path, and sharp stone formations jutted unpredictably from the walls. Ryan led, carefully testing each step. Lyra followed, using the skills he had taught her to move silently and securely. Her eyes constantly scanned the surroundings, alert to movement or sound. Ryan realized that she had become remarkably self-reliant, yet their bond remained unbroken. As they descended into the canyon, faint noises reached their ears. The scouts who had been following them for days were close again. Ryan signaled for silence, and Lyra crouched beside him. Together they observed the group moving along the canyon floor, unaware of their hidden observers. Ryan studied the terrain, noting small ledges and shadowed areas that could provide cover. He pointed to a narrow path along the canyon wall. Lyra nodded, understanding immediately. They began their ascent along the wall, careful not to dislodge stones or create noise. Lyra moved with grace, mimicking Ryan's careful steps and balance. For the first time, Ryan realized just how much she had learned, not just from his teaching, but from observing, thinking, and adapting. Her instincts were sharp, and her agility made her an extraordinary partner. Halfway up the canyon wall, a loose stone shifted beneath Ryan's foot. He caught it just in time, but the small noise alerted one of the scouts. The alien figure looked up, scanning the canyon wall. Ryan froze, motioning for Lyra to remain still. She pressed herself against the rock, her breathing steady. Slowly, Ryan gestured for her to move along a safer ledge. She followed perfectly, her trust absolute. The scout's gaze swept past them, and Ryan exhaled quietly. "Good work, Lyra," he whispered. She made a soft musical sound in response, a mix of relief and pride. Their cooperation had prevented discovery once again, reinforcing the strength of their partnership. As they reached the plateau, the landscape opened into a vast expanse. Strange forests, rivers, and distant mountains stretched as far as the eye could see. Ryan scanned the area, noting potential sources of water, shelter, and signs of other life. Lyra stood beside him, her eyes wide with awe. She reached out, touching his arm gently, and Ryan felt a surge of warmth and pride. They had made it together. They spent the day exploring the plateau carefully, setting up a secure camp near a stream. Ryan taught Lyra how to check the water for safety, how to gather edible plants, and how to use small tools to create simple devices for survival. Lyra absorbed everything eagerly, her bright eyes reflecting curiosity and intelligence. She was learning not only to survive, but to thrive. Late in the afternoon, as they rested by the stream, Ryan noticed movement in the distance. A small group of alien figures approached cautiously. This time Ryan recognized them. They were not the scouts who had pursued Lyra, but members of a nearby tribe. Ryan and Lyra remained hidden for a moment, observing the newcomers. Their posture was calm, not aggressive, and Ryan sensed that this encounter could be an opportunity rather than a threat. Ryan decided to make contact. He stood slowly, showing open hands as a gesture of peace. Lyra mirrored his actions, standing beside him. The alien tribe approached cautiously, their expressions curious. One of the figures stepped forward and made melodic sounds, gestures that Ryan interpreted as greetings. Ryan responded with a friendly tone and open gestures, introducing himself. Lyra mimicked his actions, reinforcing the message of friendship. Over the next few hours, Ryan and Lyra communicated with the tribe using gestures, sounds, and drawings in the dirt. The process was slow but effective. They discovered that this tribe was familiar with the valley and the surrounding lands. They offered guidance on safe paths, sources of food and water, and locations to avoid due to dangerous creatures. Ryan realized that forming alliances was as important as survival skills. Lyra listened intently, asking questions through gestures and sounds. That night, the tribe invited Ryan and Lyra to share their campfire. They cooked simple meals using native plants and fish from the stream. Ryan and Lyra participated, learning from the tribe and demonstrating their own skills. Lyra's intelligence and agility impressed the tribe, and Ryan noticed that she had earned their respect. For the first time since arriving on this alien world, they felt a sense of community. As the twin suns set, Ryan and Lyra sat together, watching the glowing embers of the fire. Lyra leaned slightly against him, a small gesture that spoke of trust, connection, and partnership. Ryan smiled, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. They had faced danger, outsmarted pursuers, and now found allies who could help them navigate the alien world. Lyra spoke softly, in her melodic voice. "Ryan, mate, always." Her eyes searched his, seeking reassurance. Ryan nodded firmly. "Yes, Lyra, always. We protect each other together." She smiled, her trust in him absolute. He realized that their bond had evolved beyond survival. It was a partnership of equals built on respect, learning, and shared experiences. The following days were filled with exploration, learning, and preparation. Ryan and Lyra moved with the tribe to safer locations, gathering resources and studying the land. They learned to recognize dangerous creatures, to find edible plants, and to navigate through unfamiliar terrain. Lyra excelled in every task, her intelligence and agility making her an invaluable partner. Ryan taught her human survival techniques while she shared insights from her species, creating a unique fusion of knowledge. One afternoon, while scouting near a river, Ryan and Lyra encountered a large creature with 6 legs and iridescent wings. Unlike the creatures they had observed before, this one appeared aggressive. It charged suddenly, and Ryan acted instinctively, placing himself between Lyra and the creature. Using a combination of agility, tools, and quick thinking, he managed to distract the creature and lead it away. Lyra followed closely, helping with small but precise actions that complemented Ryan's strategy. After the danger passed, Ryan looked at Lyra. "We make a good team," he said, smiling. She touched his arm lightly, her eyes shining. Ryan realized that partnership was more than cooperation. It was trust, courage, and understanding. They had saved each other multiple times, not just from external threats, but from fear and uncertainty. That evening, back at the tribe's camp, Ryan and Lyra reflected on their journey. They had faced scouts, navigated treacherous terrain, survived unknown creatures, and built alliances with a new community. Their bond had grown stronger with every challenge. Lyra's trust in Ryan and his in her had created a partnership that transcended species, language, and culture. As night fell, Ryan took Lyra's hand. "Lyra, you are my mate, not just for survival, but for partnership, learning, and life. We face this world together, always." Lyra's eyes shimmered with emotion, and she leaned against him, her trust complete. Ryan felt a deep sense of fulfillment. They had started as 2 strangers from different worlds, but now they were inseparable partners. The twin suns rose the next morning, painting the valley with warm light. Ryan and Lyra packed their camp, ready to continue exploring, learning, and surviving together. They had a new home among the tribe, allies to guide them, and the skills to face whatever challenges came next. More importantly, they had each other. As they moved forward, Ryan reflected on the journey. The alien world was vast and unpredictable, but they were no longer alone. Together, they could overcome dangers, explore new territories, and build a life in a world that had once seemed hostile and unwelcoming. Lyra's intelligence, agility, and trust had proven invaluable, and Ryan's experience, strategy, and courage had guided them both. They were a team in every sense, partners, mates, and friends. By midday, they reached the edge of a plateau overlooking a distant city in the valley below. Strange, futuristic structures glimmered in the sunlight. Ryan and Lyra observed from a distance, noting the movement of the inhabitants. It was another opportunity to learn, another challenge to face. But this time they were confident. Together they could approach the unknown without fear. Lyra turned to Ryan, her small hand resting on his arm. "Together?" she asked softly. Ryan nodded, smiling. "Always," he replied. The trust and bond between them were unshakable. They were no longer just human and alien. They were partners, mates, and equals, ready to face whatever the world offered. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the plateau. Ryan and Lyra stood together looking out at the city below. Their journey had been long and filled with danger, but it had also been a journey of growth, learning, and connection. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would